You are not ready for consistency. I know that is not what you want to hear. I know you came here because you want to be consistent. You want to wake up, execute your plan, take your setups, manage your risk, and do it the same way every single day. You want the results that come from that kind of mechanical precision. But here is the uncomfortable truth. You are not there yet. And the reason your trading keeps falling apart is not because you lack discipline. It is because you are trying to skip an entire stage of development that must come first. You are reaching for consistency the way a child reaches for the top shelf. The desire is real, the height is not. Mark Douglas understood something about trader development that almost no one talks about. He recognized that there is a stage between knowing your strategy and executing it consistently, and that stage is where most traders either transform or destroy themselves. It is the discipline stage. And if you do not pass through it deliberately, consciously, with full awareness of what it demands from you, then consistency will remain a fantasy. It will remain something you talk about, something you promise yourself every Sunday night, and something that dissolves by Tuesday afternoon. And there is a reason this happens. There is a reason you keep circling the same failures. It has nothing to do with your strategy. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has everything to do with a gap in your psychological development that you have never been taught to close. Before we go any further, I want you to understand something. The patterns I'm about to describe, the emotional traps, the belief structures that sabotage you from the inside, these are things that most traders never see about themselves. They feel the effects. They see the blown accounts and the broken rules, but they never see the cause. Mark Douglas spent his career trying to give traders the awareness to catch themselves in the act. Today, tools like the Speculator's Journal exist to do what he could only ask you to do through sheer self-honesty, to make the invisible visible, to show you the emotional fingerprints you leave on every trade so you can actually see the patterns that are running your behavior. The link is in the description if you want to look at it later. But right now, stay with me. Let me describe your trading to you, and you tell me if this sounds familiar. You have a strategy. It works. You have back-tested it, or you have watched it work in real time long enough to know that the edge is real. You understand the setups. You understand the entries, the stops, the targets. On paper, you are a competent trader, maybe even a good one. But then the market opens, and something happens between the moment you see your setup and the moment you are supposed to act on it. Something shifts, you hesitate, or you jump in too early, or you move your stop because the candle looks threatening, or you take profits at the first sign of green because you cannot stand the thought of giving back what you have, or you skip the trade entirely because the last 3 trades lost and now you are scared. You know what you should do, you do not do it. And then, after the damage is done, you sit there and you analyze. You look at the chart and you see that if you had just followed your rules, you would have been fine. The trade would have worked. The system would have paid you, but you did not follow the rules. And you do not understand why. So you do what every trader does at this point. You blame the strategy. You tweak the indicator. You add a filter. You change the time frame. You go searching for the next system, the next edge, the next secret that will finally make you consistent. And the cycle starts again. How many times have you been through this cycle? 3 times? 10? 50? Here is what Mark Douglas would have told you if you were sitting across from him. The problem is not the strategy. The problem is not even your discipline. The problem is that you do not understand where you are in your own development as a trader, and because you do not understand that, you are applying the wrong solution to the wrong problem. You are smart enough to trade. That is not the issue. Your analysis is probably fine. Your chart reading is probably decent. You do not need more knowledge. What you need is to stop treating consistency as a destination you can jump to and start treating it as a destination you must walk to, one stage at a time, through territory that is going to be deeply uncomfortable. Let me tell you the lie you have been operating under, because it is a lie that ruins more traders than any bad strategy ever could. The lie is this. You believe that learning a strategy and practicing it enough times will naturally produce consistency. You believe the path is learn, practice, succeed. 3 steps. A straight line. It is not a straight line. It is not 3 steps. There is a stage between practice and consistency that nobody warned you about, and that stage is the discipline stage. And it does not look like what you think it looks like. The discipline stage is not about forcing yourself to follow your rules. That is willpower. And willpower is a depletable resource. You can white-knuckle your way through a week, maybe 2. But willpower always runs out. The discipline stage is about something much deeper. It is about mechanically executing your process with 0 emotional attachment to the outcome of any individual trade. Not reduced attachment, 0 attachment. And that is a skill that must be developed. It is not a switch you flip. Think about a concert pianist. There is a stage in their development where they know the piece. They can play every note, but their fingers do not yet move without conscious thought. They are in the gap between knowing and embodying. If you put them on stage at that point, they will make mistakes. Not because they do not know the music, because the music has not yet moved from their conscious mind into their nervous system. The discipline stage is exactly this. It is the period where you are training your nervous system to execute without interference from your emotions. Mark Douglas built his entire philosophy around this idea that your results are not a product of your analysis, but a product of your beliefs and emotional state in the moment of execution. The discipline stage is where you learn to separate those 2 things, to act on your analysis while your emotions are screaming at you to do something else, and to do it so many times that the screaming eventually fades. This is what most traders do not understand. They think discipline is something you have or you do not have. They think it is a personality trait, like being tall or being left-handed. It is not. It is a stage of development. It is a bridge you cross, and crossing it requires specific practices done with specific intention over a specific period of time. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that you have tried being disciplined. You have written rules. You have made commitments. You have even followed them for a while, and it did not last. So you concluded that you are not a disciplined person. You are wrong. You did not fail because you lacked discipline. You failed because you tried to be disciplined without understanding what the discipline stage actually demands. You tried to produce the behavior without building the infrastructure that supports it. That is like trying to run a marathon without training your cardiovascular system first. Your legs might want to run, your heart will not let you. So let me give you the infrastructure. Let me be very specific about what the discipline stage looks like when you do it right. The first practice is the pre-trade mechanical checklist. This is non-negotiable. Before you place any trade, you complete a physical checklist, not a mental one, a physical one, written down on paper or on your screen. And you do not place the trade until every item is checked. Here is why this matters. In the moment before you enter a trade, your brain is flooded with competing signals: fear of missing out, fear of losing, excitement, anxiety, revenge from the last loss, euphoria from the last win. All of these signals are fighting for control of your decision. A checklist externalizes the decision. It takes the choice out of your emotional brain and puts it on paper, where emotions cannot reach it. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that a checklist is too simple, that it is beneath you, that you already know your criteria and you do not need to write them down every single time. That objection is your ego talking, and your ego is exactly what the discipline stage is designed to neutralize. Here is exactly what goes on the checklist. 5 items. First, does this setup match my defined criteria? Yes or no? Not probably, not close enough, not it looks like it might. Yes or no? Second, is my position size calculated at my predefined risk percentage? You write the number down. Third, is my stop loss at my predefined level? You write the price down. Fourth, is my target at my predefined level? You write that price down too. Fifth, am I taking this trade because my system says to, or because I feel like I should? That 5th question is the most important question you will ever ask yourself as a trader. Because if the answer is that you feel like you should, you do not take the trade. Period. Let me walk you through what this looks like in practice. You are sitting at your desk, your setup appears, Your pulse quickens. You feel the pull. Instead of clicking the buy button, you pull up your checklist. You write down the setup criteria and verify each one. Check. You calculate your position size. You write it down. Check. You identify your stop. You write it down. Check. You identify your target. Check. Then you pause on question 5. Why am I taking this trade? You notice that you lost the last 2 trades and you feel an urgency to make the money back. You write that down honestly. And because you wrote it down, because you externalized it, you can see it for what it is. Revenge, not analysis. Revenge. Now you have a choice, and that choice is visible. It is not hiding in the fog of emotion. It is sitting right there on paper. That is what the checklist does. It makes the invisible visible. It turns your emotional impulses into observable data. And in the discipline stage, observation is everything. This is why the pre-trade checklist matters. Because discipline is not about controlling your emotions. It is about seeing your emotions clearly enough that they lose their power over your decisions. You do not know what will happen on the next trade. No one does, but you can know exactly why you are taking it. And that knowing is the foundation of everything. But there is something that must happen after the trade that is equally important. Let me talk about the second practice, the post-trade emotional audit. This is non-negotiable. After every trade, win or loss, you answer 5 questions. Not about the trade itself, about you, about what was happening inside you while the trade was open. Most traders review their trades by looking at charts. They analyze entries and exits. They calculate their risk to reward. All of that is useful, but it misses the point entirely. Because the trade did not fail because of the chart. The trade failed because of what was happening between your ears while you were looking at the chart. Here are the 5 questions. First, what was I feeling when I entered this trade? Write the emotion, not fine, not normal. The actual emotion, anxious, confident, fearful, excited, bored, numb, desperate. Second, did I follow every element of my checklist before entering? Yes or no? Third, at any point during the trade, did I consider breaking a rule? If so, which rule and why? Fourth, what was I feeling when the trade closed? Fifth, if I had to take this exact same trade again tomorrow with the exact same setup, would I take it the same way? That 5th question is where real growth happens. Because if the answer is no, if you would do something differently, then something in your execution was driven by emotion rather than process. And now you know exactly where the crack is. Let me give you an example. You take a trade, it hits your target, you made money. Most traders stop there. They mark it as a win and move on. But you sit down and answer the 5 questions. You realize that while the trade was open, you almost moved your target closer because the price stalled and you were afraid of giving back the profit. You did not move it, but you almost did. And that almost is critical information. That is a crack in your discipline. It did not cost you this time. It will cost you eventually. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this is too much work. You are thinking that winners do not need to be analyzed. You are thinking that you should only review your losses. That is exactly the kind of thinking that keeps traders stuck in the discipline stage forever. Because your psychology does not only sabotage you on losing trades, it sabotages you on winning trades too. Winning is more dangerous than losing. Because winning teaches your brain that whatever you did was correct, even if what you did was break your rules and get lucky. And luck disguised as skill is the most dangerous thing in trading. This is where I want you to think carefully about something. All of this, the checklists, the emotional audits, the self-observation, it only works if you can actually see the patterns over time. 1 day of journaling is a data point. 2 weeks is a pattern. 2 months is a mirror. And most traders never reach 2 months because they try to hold all of it in their heads. Mark Douglas could only ask traders to develop this level of self-awareness through raw discipline and honesty. Today, something like the Speculator's Journal can surface those emotional patterns for you, can show you the recurring beliefs and feelings that cluster around your worst decisions. So the mirror is not something you have to build from memory alone. The link is in the description. But stay with me, because knowing the tool exists does not matter if you do not understand why you need it. Let me talk about the third practice. This is the one most traders will resist the hardest, the daily identity declaration. This is non-negotiable. Every morning, before the market opens, before you look at a single chart, you sit down and you write one sentence. That sentence begins with the words, "I am a trader who," and you complete it with a behavioral identity statement, not a goal, not a wish, an identity. Here is the difference, and it is everything. A goal says, I want to follow my rules today. An identity says, I am a trader who follows their rules regardless of outcome. A goal is something you chase. An identity is something you embody. And the discipline stage is fundamentally about identity construction, not behavior modification. Think about the difference between someone who is on a diet and someone who is a healthy eater. The person on a diet is using willpower to resist the cake. The healthy eater does not experience the cake as a temptation because it contradicts who they are. The behavior is the same. They both skip the cake, but the internal experience is completely different. One is suffering, the other is at peace. The discipline stage is where you build the identity that makes consistent execution feel like self-expression rather than self-denial. Your daily identity declaration is not an affirmation. I know that is what it sounds like, and I know you are rolling your eyes. But there is a neurological basis for this. When you write a statement about who you are and you repeat it before the market opens, you are priming your reticular activating system to filter information through that identity. You are telling your brain, this is who we are today. Act accordingly. And your brain, remarkably, begins to comply. Not on the first day, not on the fifth day, but over weeks of consistent repetition, the identity begins to take root. Here is exactly what this looks like. You sit down at your desk at 7 in the morning, you open your journal, you write, I am a trader who executes my system mechanically, without attachment to the outcome of any single trade. You read it out loud, you sit with it for 30 seconds. Then you begin your pre-market preparation. That is it. 30 seconds, one sentence, every single day. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that this is too simple to work. That real change requires something more dramatic, more intense, more sophisticated. And that is precisely the belief that has been keeping you stuck. Because the discipline stage is not dramatic. It is not intense. It is not exciting. It is monotonous. It is repetitive. It is boring. And that boredom is the entire point. Because if it feels exciting, you are still trading from emotion. And if you are trading from emotion, you are not in the discipline stage. You are in the illusion stage. You do not know what will happen on the next trade. But you can know who you are when you take it. Let me talk about the fourth practice, the discomfort log. This is non-negotiable. At the end of every trading day, you write down the single moment where discipline was hardest. The moment where you most wanted to break a rule, and you write down what you did instead. This practice serves a very specific psychological function. It teaches your brain that discomfort is not a signal to change your behavior. It is a signal that you are in the discipline stage. It is a signal that growth is happening. Most traders experience discomfort and interpret it as evidence that something is wrong. They feel the urge to break a rule, and they conclude that the rule is wrong, or the strategy is wrong, or the market is different today. What they do not realize is that the discomfort is the discipline stage working exactly as it should. Think of it like weight training. The burn in your muscles is not a sign that you should stop lifting. It is a sign that the muscle is adapting. The discomfort you feel when you sit on your hands instead of revenge trading, when you let a trade hit your stop instead of moving it, when you skip a setup that does not meet your criteria even though your gut says take it, that discomfort is your psychological muscles adapting. And if you run from it, the adaptation never happens. Here is what you write. Today, the hardest moment was when, and you describe the situation. Then you write, I wanted to, and you describe the impulse. Then you write instead, I, and you describe what you actually did. Then you write, tomorrow, I expect this to be. And you write either easier or the same, not harder, because it does get easier. Not linearly, not predictably, but it does get easier. Let me give you an example. You write, today, the hardest moment was when my trade was up 15 ticks and started pulling back. I wanted to close it manually and lock in the profit before it could reverse. Instead, I sat on my hands and let my system manage the exit. The trade pulled back to break even and then hit my target 2 hours later. Tomorrow, I expect this to be the same. That entry is worth more than 100 hours of chart analysis because it documents the exact moment where your old identity tried to hijack your new one, and it documents that you did not let it. Over time, this log becomes a record of your transformation. You will look back at entries from 3 months ago and realize that the things that used to feel impossible now feel automatic. That is not willpower. That is identity change. That is the discipline stage doing its work. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that 4 daily practices is too many, that you do not have time, that this will turn trading into a second job. Let me be very direct with you. The pre-trade checklist takes 90 seconds. The post-trade emotional audit takes 3 minutes. The daily identity declaration takes 30 seconds. The discomfort log takes 2 minutes at the end of the day. That is less than 7 minutes. You spend more time than that staring at a chart trying to decide whether to take a trade. You spend more time than that scrolling through social media looking at other people's profit screenshots. You spend more time than that lying awake at night replaying the trade you should not have taken. 7 minutes is not too much time. 7 minutes is the difference between staying in the cycle and breaking out of it. And these 4 practices are not separate from each other. They are a single integrated system designed to do one thing: to make your internal world as visible and structured as your external strategy. Because your strategy is already good enough, it has always been good enough. What has never been good enough is your ability to execute it without emotional interference. And these 4 practices, done every single day without exception, are how you build that ability. You do not know what will happen on the next trade. That will never change. But what can change is how you respond to that uncertainty. And how you respond is determined not by your strategy, not by your analysis, not by the market conditions, but by who you are in that moment. The discipline stage is where you build the version of yourself who can respond with calm, mechanical precision regardless of what the market does next. So let me bring this together. Here is what I need you to commit to. 1, you complete the pre-trade mechanical checklist before every single trade. Every trade, no exceptions. 2, you complete the post-trade emotional audit after every single trade. Winners and losers, no exceptions. 3, you write your daily identity declaration every morning before the market opens. Every morning, no exceptions. 4, you fill in your discomfort log at the end of every trading day. Every day, no exceptions. You do these 4 things every day for 6 months. Not 6 days, not 6 weeks, 6 months. Because the discipline stage is not a weekend project. It is a phase of development that takes time, repetition, and patience to pass through. And I will tell you what happens on the other side. Not excitement, not euphoria, not the thrill of big wins. What happens is something much more valuable than any of that. What happens is boredom. You will sit down at your desk and you will see your setup and you will take it without feeling anything. You will manage the trade without feeling anything. It will hit your stop and you will feel nothing. It will hit your target and you will feel nothing. And in that nothingness, in that calm, mechanical emptiness, you will finally be consistent. Because consistency is not a behavior. It is a byproduct of identity. It is what happens when you have passed through the discipline stage and arrived on the other side as a different person. A person who does not need the market to validate them. A person who does not need each trade to be right. A person who understands at the deepest level that any single trade is meaningless and that only the series matters. Remember what I told you at the beginning. You are not ready for consistency. Not yet. And that is perfectly fine. Because now you know what comes first. Now you know about the stage that nobody talks about, the stage that Mark Douglas identified as the turning point, the bridge between knowing and being. The discipline stage is not punishment. It is not suffering. It is the cocoon. And what emerges from it, if you have the patience and the courage to stay inside long enough, is the trader you were always capable of becoming. And when it is over, when you look at your discomfort log and realize that nothing feels hard anymore, when you look at your post-trade audits and see the same word repeated, calm, 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 that is when you will understand what Mark Douglas meant when he said the goal is not to win. The goal is to trade without fear, without hesitation, and without internal conflict. You will not get there through more analysis. You will not get there through a better strategy. You will get there through 7 minutes a day, done without exception, for as long as it takes. The link to the Speculator's Journal is in the description if you want a place to track all of this, a way to see the emotional patterns that are invisible when they live only in your head. Check it out when you are done here. But whether you use a tool or a notebook,